Robert Hayes and Ellen Pierce lived in Savannah, Georgia, a city of moss-draped oaks and cobblestone streets, where the air hung thick with history and humidity, and they shared 32 years of marriage. At 56, in the sultry spring of 2022, they let go, not with venom or tears, but with a mutual nod to a life that had softened into stillness. They'd raised 2 sons, owned a yellow Victorian house near Forsyth Park, and built a world woven from routine and resilience. He was a carpenter, his hands etched with sawdust and time, crafting furniture that filled homes across Chatham County. She taught piano, her fingers dancing over keys, filling rooms with melodies that lingered like the scent of magnolias. By their mid-50s, that world had settled into a quiet hum, their love a faded chord no longer in tune. This is their story, a gentle parting after decades, a duet of rediscovery through separate paths, and a harmony found anew by 59, set against the warm, slow pulse of the Deep South. Robert met Ellen in 1989 at a jazz festival on River Street, both 24, both swept into the crowd where horns blared and the Savannah River glittered under a bruised sunset. He wore a faded denim shirt, a beer in hand, his broad frame leaning against a lamppost after a day shaping oak into tables. She stood nearby, a slim figure in a sundress, swaying to the music, her dark hair loose, a stack of sheet music peeking from her bag. They talked about the saxophone's wail, about his love for wood that told stories, about her joy in teaching kids to play Chopin on creaky uprights. He asked her to dance as the band swung into a slow tune, and she laughed, stepping into his arms, their feet shuffling on the uneven stones. A year later, in May 1990, they married in a garden off Bull Street, her dress white as the blossoms overhead, his boots scuffed from work, the air sweet with jasmine as family clapped from folding chairs. He promised to build her a life, she vowed to fill it with song. For years, they played that melody together. Their sons arrived like summer storms, Nathan in 1992, a sturdy boy with Robert's square jaw and a knack for breaking things, then Caleb in 1994, leaner, with Ellen's hazel eyes and an ear for rhythm. Robert traded weekend fishing for backyard forts, his saw buzzing as he built treehouses and bookshelves, sawdust clinging to his jeans. Ellen juggled lessons, her piano bench worn from years of small hands, the house alive with scales and laughter. In 1996, they bought the Victorian, appealing yellow beauty with a wraparound porch, tall windows that caught the morning light, and a garden tangled with azaleas and ivy. Robert restored it plank by plank, sanding floors until they gleamed, crafting a dining table from reclaimed pine that bore the scars of old barns. Ellen hung lace curtains, tuned an old Steinway in the parlor, and planted roses along the fence, their petals falling pink and red each spring. They'd picnic in Forsyth Park, Nathan chasing fireflies, Caleb tapping sticks on benches, the city's heat wrapping them in a slow, sticky embrace. Money came tight, summers sweltered, but the house rang with their shared song. The notes began to falter. By their 40s, Robert and Ellen felt the strain creep in. Nathan left for Atlanta in 2011, studying engineering, his room a museum of model planes and dusty tools. Caleb followed in 2013, off to Nashville for music, his drumsticks and guitar picks scattered like relics. The Victorian hushed, its creaks louder than footsteps, the Steinway gathering dust. Robert spent longer in his workshop, a shed behind the house, sanding chairs, carving cabinets, his radio crackling with blues he barely heard. Ellen took on more students, her days a blur of recitals and scales, her evenings quiet as she sipped tea on the porch. He'd suggest, let's drive to Tybee, feel the sand, or, how about supper at the Grey, but she'd smile faint, too tired, Rob, maybe tomorrow. They ate apart, slept apart, the garden overgrown, their voices lost in the hum of cicadas. By 2020, he took the guest room, its mattress lumpy, the window framing a city they no longer shared. The parting came soft in April 2022. Robert was 56, his hands knotted from years of planes and chisels, his hair graying at the temples under a ball cap. Ellen was 56 too, her fingers stiff from decades of keys, her hazel eyes dimmed by routine. He'd just finished a rocking chair for a client, its curve smooth under his palm, when he found her in the parlor, dusting the piano she hadn't played in months. "We can't keep pretending," he said, his voice low as the river at dusk. She turned, her sundress faded, her hands pausing on the keys. "I know, Rob, we're just done, aren't we?" He nodded, slow and sure. "Yeah, Elle, we are, it's not us anymore." They sat on the porch, the air heavy with spring, the creak of the swing a soft goodbye. After 32 years, they agreed, no fights, no regrets, just a tune that had played out. They parted with a hug, her cheek warm against his, a final note held long. Divorce at 56 was a shift in key. They sold the Victorian, too big, too steeped in echoes, and split the money fair. Ellen moved to an apartment near the river, a bright space with a view of the Talmadge Bridge, her piano squeezed into a corner. Robert rented a loft above a hardware store on Broughton Street, its brick walls bare, its windows rattling with downtown noise. Nathan called from Atlanta, "Dad, Mom, why now, what happened?" Caleb texted from Nashville, "I get it, love you both." Friends split, some stayed with Ellen, taking lessons or buying her cookies, others met Robert for coffee at Gallery Espresso. The first year was a haze. Robert worked in a fog, his tools heavy, nights spent staring at the ceiling, the city's hum a distant drone. Ellen taught through a blur, her fingers fumbling, evenings spent on her balcony, the river's flow a mirror to her drift. They missed the boys, the house, even each other's quiet presence, habits. Hard to unlearn. Harmony stirred in 2023. At 57, Robert joined a gardening club, a lark after a client mentioned it, his hands trading chisels for trowels, planting bulbs in a community plot near Colonial Park Cemetery. He was clumsy at first, dirt caking his nails, but he stayed, drawn to the slow bloom of life, tulips, daffodils, a dogwood he nursed through a dry spell. The group was warm retirees, a young florist, a widow named June who loved zinnias and laughed easy. They met weekly, sharing seeds and stories, the sun baking their backs. Robert grew his first rose, red as the ones Ellen once tended, and set it in a pot on his windowsill, a nod to roots he hadn't lost. Ellen, at 57, took up painting watercolors at a studio on Jones Street, her fingers swapping keys for brushes, smearing blues and greens across canvas. She fumbled, paint streaking her arms, but she kept at it, her first piece a river scene, its hues soft as her old melodies, hung above her couch. By 58, they were rising. Robert sold his van, bought a motorcycle, a black Harley with a rumble that shook the cobblestones, and rode to Skidaway Island, the wind cutting through his jacket, the marshes stretching gold and green. He wasn't fast, but the roar freed him, the road a new grain to follow. He started a blog, Wood and Soil, writing about divorce, dirt, and the things he'd grown, his words plain but steady. Readers found it, folks in Macon, Charleston, a woman in Augusta saying, "I'm planting too." Ellen traded her car for a bike, a mint green cruiser, and pedaled the historic district, her scarf fluttering, the breeze cool against her skin. She joined a choir at Trinity Church, her voice blending with others, alto notes lifting her spirit. Nathan visited Robert, saw the rose, grinned, "You're softer now, Dad." Caleb saw Ellen's painting, hugged her, "You're glowing, Mom." At 59, they found harmony apart. Robert cut workshop hours, volunteered at a park, tending trails and teaching kids to plant, his hands steady, his laugh deep. He rode to Hilton Head one weekend, camped by the sea, woke to waves crashing under a pink dawn. Ellen scaled back lessons, sang with her choir, her watercolors stacking up, scenes of oaks, rivers, skies, sold at a local market. She biked to Tybee, swam in the surf, the salt sharp on her tongue. They weren't rich, his loft smelled of earth, her apartment of paint. They weren't famed, his blog had 400 followers, her art stayed small. But they were Robert and Ellen, whole, alive, in tune. They met once, by chance at a festival in 2025, her with a canvas, him with a potted fern. They smiled, chatted, parted easy, two songs in harmony, not discord. Divorce at 56 broke our duet, they'd say now, their voices calm. It let us sing solo, and better across America, from Savannah's shade to every quiet street. People like Robert and Ellen part and bloom every day. Gray divorces aren't finales, they're refrains. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Their tale is real, warm, worn, wonderful. If it hums in you, subscribe. Every day, a new story, people like us, finding harmony after 55. You're not alone. Let's play your tune together.